What is going on, friends? Welcome to My Weekly Mixtape, a show that takes the classic mixtape approach to building a modern playlist. I'm your host, Brian Colburn, and we are wrapping up 2025 by celebrating two of the biggest interviews in My Weekly Mixtape history, both of which happened earlier this year. However, because of the way I approach interviews, they're still just as relevant today as when they first aired, and I am excited to revisit them because both guests are from one of my favorite hard rock bands on the planet, that being Shinedown, and I was blessed enough to have both Barry Kerch and Eric Bass on the program to talk all things Shinedown, including the history of the band, what's going on in their camp right now, Eric's first ever solo album, I Had a Name, the graphic novel that accompanies it, the songs they released in 2025, including, just to name a few, Dance Kid Dance, 365 and The Killing Fields, and drop a lot of hints, a lot of breadcrumbs for Shinedown 8, which is coming your way sometime in 2026. And we got the dirt on several brand new tracks during these sit-downs. So what better way to get excited for 2026 than to run this as we lead into 2026? Now, before we get to the main event, if you like what you're hearing on My Weekly Mixtape, please send me an email, myweeklymixtape@gmail.com. Send me suggestions for episode topics you'd like to hear in the new year. Connect with me on social media at My Weekly Mixtape on all the social media haunts. If you'd like to go the next step further, join the Mixtaper community at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape. It's free to join, and there's other tiers if you'd like to get some extra special goodies. And then finally, connect with me over on the main hub for My Weekly Mixtape, which is myweeklymixtape.com. And no matter where you're listening, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, YouTube, if you can leave a 5-star review, thumbs up, send good vibes my way, drop a comment about what you liked about the episode, all those things help other music fans find the show. And that is the way an independent creator like myself can build this program and take it to the next level. I appreciate every bit of support that you guys have shown this show throughout the years. And I promise you guys in 2026, I'm going to do my best to continue to up the ante each and every week. Now, without further ado, let's dive into the sound of Shinedown, kicking off with my sit down with the one and only Barry Kerch, where I started off by asking him my favorite first-time guest question. What does the word mixtape mean to you?
I guess, I'm a product of the 70s and child of the 80s. For me, mixtape was the thing. And to me, it's two things. Either you're making the mixtape for your girlfriend, the love of your life, and you're getting all the songs you can to prove to her your love. But for me, more importantly, it was getting those songs that you heard on the radio and sitting there in a bedroom with your little cassette player going, record. Okay, got it. Got that song. Oh, that's a new song from this. Because back in those days, you couldn't, you had to listen to the radio to hear that song. And once you had it on that tape, you had that song. So it's this nostalgia and joy of really having to dig deep to search out music, which you don't have to do anymore.
That's part of the reason I do this show each week, is to try to bring back some of that joy of finding that song. Because when you look for things on Spotify, everything's so instantaneous that the joy of discovering that new song, it's almost watered down compared to the way it was when we were growing up.
I agree. And I guess I'm a curmudgeon in that way because I don't like the instant gratification of the internet these days and social media and all that kind of stuff. Though it's a wonderful tool, I get frustrated sometimes because I do miss those times of being introduced to a new band. And it's like, oh, my friend had this CD that he passed me and I finally heard it. And it was like, oh, wow, what is this? That's how I got introduced to Nine Inch Nails. I'm an 80s metalhead. I'm playing tennis in high school. I'm on a tennis trip, and my friend Bao Win, he's Pretty Hate Machine CD, and I didn't give it back to him. I kept listening to it, and that's why I'm a diehard Nine Inch Nails fan, because that was a pivotal moment in my life that changed my taste in music. And it's those happy accidents or those neat surprises that make music so much fun and personal for yourselves.
And that it is. So let's now dive into the reason we're here tonight, and that is to talk all things Shinedown. And I'd like to kind of start from the beginning, maybe a top level approach here.
Sure.
Could you talk about the evolution of the band's music that's taken place over the last 24 years and counting?
Wow. How much time do we have? It's grown. I look back on it now, and when Shinedown started, I was 25 years old. And I played like a 25-year-old person, a 25-year-old musician. I only had that much experience getting in there. And the rest of us as well, we were all around the same age. Brent was a little younger. Jason at the time and Brad at the time were a couple years older. So we were right within a year or two of each other. And we were playing what we felt at the time and what we grew up with. And the early sound of Shinedown, I think, had quite a bit more Southern influence that came from, Jason and Brad growing up in the Jacksonville area, in the Northeast Florida area. I grew up in the panhandle of Florida, but I'm a military brat, so my exposure was different. They grew up deep in that scene of Southern rock and Skynyrd and stuff and all those things. And Brent being a Tennessee boy who grew up primarily listening not to Southern rock, though he's a Southern rock fan, but he also listened to a lot of Motown and things like that. He learned to sing by singing Otis Redding because his parents were very religious, and he would, when they found his Poison cassette in his house, they threw it out and said, "You need to listen to this," So it wasn't allowed. So what was cool about Shinedown, especially in those early days, was the mix of those things and the excitement of being new to professional studios and new to that side of the craft that I think has been honed over the years. And then it grew. The second record was a total different journey. It was more trippy and things of that nature, and it was kind of more raw because we were doing it almost home studio based because we didn't have a lot of time to do it because the label's like, okay, first record's done. We need another one in 6 months. And, we were having to write and get it done. And there was a lot of pressure because though the first record did really well, it didn't do well enough to where they weren't worried about us having a second record. It was like, we got to get through this hump or we might not be here. And the band at that time was pretty tumultuous. There was a lot of infighting. There was a lot of things going on that made it difficult to be, even though we were a band of brothers, it was just a hard time. And then growing into Sound of Madness is when kind of everything changed. And there was Dave Bassett was brought in with Brent to write some stuff. And, the writing, I think, became more sophisticated. Brent really focused more on his lyrics, and he had something to prove. All of a sudden, this thing went off in his brain. And there was more of something to prove. Like you listen to Sound of Madness, the song, compared to like 45. 45 was like the world's looking in at me. Sound of Madness was like, I'm going to be that person. And that's what really changed the trajectory of our career. And then, also we had new members coming in. So when we got to like Amaryllis and Threat and Attention up through Planet, it was really having Eric as a juggernaut of a songwriter and player and engineer and producer. He's produced the last 2.5 records and he's produced this one that we're working on now. So that changed our sound, but I think for the better. We became more open to, well, if we want to put a keyboard on the song or we want to put a drum machine on the song, why not? We don't, it is always going to come down to vocals, bass, drums, guitar, but we were willing to just throw caution to the wind and go, this is what the song needs. I don't care if it needs a mandolin and me clapping in the background and that's the drum track. That's the drum track. And I think we got better as songwriters and better as players. I would hope anybody who's in this industry continues to grow as a player. I still take lessons. I still work on my craft. There's still a lifetime's worth of things to learn on my drums and to learn in the studio and how to make these things happen. Every time I get with Eric, I'm like, dude, you're taking me to college every time. I learn a new technique and I learn a new thing. And we learned so much early, God rest his soul. But Doug, the engineer on Sound of Madness, Amaryllis, and Attention, and I think a song or two on Threat, unfortunately passed away. And his knowledge was scary because he's an LA guy. He grew up in those studios. He just knew how to engineer. And he'd be like, what do you mean you haven't tried this mic technique where I take this crappy Radio Shack mic and I put it against this wall and I, blow it up with a compressor, but check out what it does to the drums when you turn it up. And you're like, oh, God, how did you think of that? So you learn over the years and you hone your craft and in a very long, I can be long-winded, but a very long story short, I think we've just become better at our personal instruments, better song crafters, and a little bit less cautious, a little bit more of, I don't give a shit. This is the song we're going to do. This is the songs that you're going to get from Shinedown. And you can never change Brent's voice, right? It never leaves Shinedown. It still sounds like Shinedown, but I don't want to make Leave a Whisper again. I love that time period and I have nothing but fond memories. And I have no regrets over our whole lexicon of music, but I don't want to make that again. I got to make what we're feeling right now. And that's the most important thing.
You brought up something about working with Eric and what he's brought to you. And I talked to him about his album that's being released this week as well.
Yeah.
But I'd like to talk about your writing and approach to recording drums, because one thing that I mentioned to Eric that has always impressed me about what you bring to the album is you're always willing to play to the strength of the song, no matter what that is, be it the timing changes in unity to where you kind of sit back in a song like A Symptom of Being Human from Planet Zero. How do you decide? Is it during the writing or the recording session where you should be laying into a song and bringing that metal background into play, or sitting back and letting kind of the song breathe and speak for itself?
It definitely becomes song dependent, and it happens in the studio when it's time to track the drums. Because a lot of times within Shinedown, I get presented a demo form, and it's going to have, a finger drummed programmed kind of placeholder that goes, okay, I see where this is going. And then it's up to me to form what's going to happen in the fills and things of that nature, because I am unabashedly not apologetic to say that I am not a songwriter. I do not have that ability. I think in rhythms. I don't think in melody. I am a proud drummer. And that being said, early in your career as a drummer, if you are a drummer and are taking this, you want to play all those cool things you learned. And it's look at me, look at me, look at me, look at this cool thing I did, look at these stick twirls, all these things. And there is a place for something. And maybe certain bands that you're in, if you listen to like a Rush, Mastodon, whatever you name it, those drummers have a little bit more freedom to go, look at me, and they play a little bit more wild stuff. That's not what Shinedown is. And for me, probably when it goes back to even the last question you asked about the evolution of Shinedown and their songwriting, I've learned humility in my music and in my playing. And I think that's the most important thing a drummer can learn, is humility in your playing to play the song. You are not the star. You are the drummer. You are the support. And you should wear that as a badge of courage and a badge of honor. That's something to be proud of, to sit back and go, I'm going to hold this band down and make that song feel as good as that song should feel every single time. So when I'm there live and I'm locked in and everything's vibing, I can look at my guys who could be a little bit crazier, maybe get off a little bit on the guitar, or, something falls apart. I'm not going to F up because I'm holding it down for my band. I'm the support. And when it comes to recording, that's when that really happens. Like, what does this song need? And we'll talk about it sometimes, especially with Eric and I. We have such a good working relationship at this point that, he's not afraid to go, oh, Barry's going to get pissed because I want to change this. It's like, no, what's your idea? What do you hear? What are you hearing that I'm not hearing? Or vice versa. I go to him and go, hey, man, it'd be really cool if we did a little clap in this area or a tambourine here. What do you think about a shaker tambourine mix? And he'll go, that's too much because it's going to step on the vocals here. Oh, you're right, because you already hear the vocals and I haven't heard them yet. We're doing the drum track. So it's those kind of conversations, especially when you're starting from the ether, to go, yeah, I think that's a good idea. But that fill, as cool as it was, can you shorten it a bar? Well, why? It was a cool fill. He's like, yeah, it was, but the vocal's still going right there and you're stepping all over it. Cool. Let's do a shorter fill or a longer fill. Hey, man, we need this to build into this chorus where everything's just going to come in and hammer you in the face. That's what I'm going to do. And that's my job, is to service the song. And I pride myself on that. And my favorite drummers are groove drummers, more so than the show-off drummers. As much as I appreciate their talents, I'd much rather listen to Charlie Watts from the Stones, God rest his soul, just lay it down, or Steve Jordan just laying it down. That makes you feel something. Drums are supposed to make you feel something and just nod your head. And that's what I want to do.
Oh, Steve Jordan, man. I saw him this past summer with the Rolling Stones, and as sad as I am that Charlie wasn't back there, he holds down a groove like no other, and he brought this swagger to the Rolling Stones that I don't want to say that is better, because it's not better, it's just different. And there's something about his playing that it's distinctly Steve Jordan. So I love that you brought him
I agree.
on.
And I think it brought he brought, not that he's a super young man, but he brought youth back to the Stones. I think there was an article, it was either Jordan was talking or it was Mick Jagger, but he was like, yeah, all of a sudden we're playing the tempos that we used to play back in the 60s. And we hadn't done that in a while because, we're all getting older. And Steve Jordan's like, no, this is the tempo you used to do it at. And so it's pushing them, which is entertaining too. It's neat to see how those things happen,
Oh, 100%. Yeah. You said something before that I actually want to challenge you on, because you said that you're not a writer. But I'm going to challenge that a little bit, because I have dents in my steering wheel from the Sound of Madness and Adrenaline that say otherwise, because the drums really are a piece of what makes those songs so massive and so emotional. The
Yeah.
opening drums in The Sound of Madness are so thunderous that when that kicks, you feel it in your bones. And I want to applaud that contribution that you bring to the band because,
Thank you.
you know, the drummer's got to get some love every now and then. And as a bass player, I look out for my rhythm section, man. I have
That's
to say
right.
that.
And I'll take that love and I appreciate it. I guess in the industry side of the things, drums is not part of songwriting. How that happened
Right.
over the years, I have no idea. But in the industry, the business side of things, doesn't matter what I play, it's not part of the songwriting. It's about the melody. And so maybe that's a small point of contention with me because I think it takes all sums to make the song great. You know, if a different drummer played on Second Chance, it might have been a different fill there. And that's one of my most recognized fills. It's simple, super simple, but it sticks out. And that's a part in the song that really makes that song what it is. So
That's
I don't know.
poignant, absolutely poignant. Now, on the flip of the heavier side of things, when you have a song like A Symptom of Being Human, the first time I heard that song, the hair on my arm stood up, not just from the lyric perspective, because it's a song that hits home for a lot of people and it's made a lot of important conversations happen, but musically, the fact that you just sat back and kind of did this shuffle beat made the song 100 times more powerful than had you brought the whole kit into the fold. And I'd love to know the mindset behind that because the song is perfect in its simplicity almost. And I don't mean to make that sound as a negative.
No. I think some of the best songs out there are perfect in their simplicity because it's a tendency for all of us, especially when producing and recording, to throw the kitchen sink at it. And then sometimes you just have too much. I think for that song, when I remember vividly being in the studio with Eric and talking about it, because the demo was quite a bit different, even maybe a little more sparse. We just had, it wasn't an afterthought. The vocals were there and the melody was there, but the music, the backing music really was just very basic and rudimentary in a demo format. And in talking about it, it's like we need the song to grow because tempo wise, if it didn't grow, it could fall flat easily. Even though the lyrics are so good, it needs to just constantly grow as the song is going on to keep the interest of the listener. And we looked at it as, I remember he and I talking, and I don't know which one of us said it first, but we're like, we need to treat this like an orchestra. And so I turned on my high school and college brain when I played in the orchestras and stuff and went, we're going to treat this like this. So I didn't even set up a drum kit. All those ports were recorded as if it were a concert setting. Upright bass drum, concert snare drum, cymbals were done afterwards. It was absolutely done as if I were in a orchestra. And that's, I think, what gave the lift to the song. You know, you listen to certain orchestra pieces where when the drums finally come in, it's like, it just hits you. That was the whole premise behind Symptom.
I know that you did not have any part of the lyric writing in this one. I know that, that was between Eric and Brent, but this is a heavier subject, mental health, anxiety. It's something a lot of people struggle with. I personally struggle with it.
Yeah.
And there's such a humble connection in these lyrics to these songs. And I'm curious to know if these songs are as meaningful to the band as the fans that have really found hope and purpose from these words.
Yes and no. I think it hits differently. For the fans, it's something they can relate to and take as their own as hey, they're writing this about me and it's an outlet. For us, it's the therapy of getting those feelings out because it's a true story about us. You know, that's the one thing I love about my band. The one thing I cherish about Shinedown and always have is the lyrics are true stories, every last one of them. And it's not about, just making something up. So that song is about mental health because it's about Eric's head and Brent looking at him and them looking at each other. And it's about dealing with that and realizing that all of us have our issues and the things we go through on any day. I'm kind of the rock of the band. I'm the one that takes care of my boys. And I'm the one that all the problems from my band and crew come to me. They always come through me because I guess I'm easy to talk to or something. But everybody, I'm that person that I'm the vampire. They just dump it all on me. And I'm there to support my guys because yes, I have my good days and bad days. I am a human as well, but I'm a little more solid than they are. I don't deal with the same things they do. Brent with his past addiction issues, Eric with his depression that's just ungodly. And even Zach, he's a very emotional guy. And I think all artists really, truly are led by emotion more so than most. I think we have to be creative. And I think, that's why Eric and Brent are so good at lyrics because I think they're so emotionally damaged. They can just get it out there and that's their therapy. So I think, are these songs equally as important to us? Yes, in that it is our therapy and we're able to get it out there. But when people outside of us, when the fans take ownership, we have a different love with that song because now we get to see it affect other people and like, holy shit, we put that together and they get to feel that. And when I look at the audience and I see people crying or laughing or jumping and that emotion, it's like a drug for me in that we created this for you and you're able to feel something and have an escape from your everyday life for just a moment. It's the best thing ever.
What was the first Shinedown song for you personally that made you realize that the band had something special?
45.
All the way back.
Yeah. Because I was given that in a demo form for my audition for the band. I was given that and Lacerated off the first record because I was the, I think, 7th drummer to try out. And so we go into a practice space here in Jacksonville, Florida, and they'd give me those 2 songs, said, learn these, learned them, played them. They're like, oh, good, cool. You know the songs. Tomorrow we want you to go in a studio here locally and just record a demo with real drums on it. Because at that point it was just a demo without drums or whatever. Great. And they said, we're going to do 45. No problem. Go in there with my busted up kit, old heads because I wasn't prepared, some cracked cymbals, but it had a vibe. And I went in there and I recorded 45. And it just felt good. And it was great. Fast forward, we end up in LA, finally get the green light from Atlantic Records. We're finally found a name for ourselves. We're in LA recording the first record. And we record this massive version of 45 and put an orchestra on it, did all these things, and it was great. Getting ready to release the record, our A&R guy goes, man, there's something special about the demo version of 45. And we all agreed, and that's the one you hear on the record. That's my audition.
Wow.
That's how I got into this band, was that recording, that song, and that busted up kit. That's the original demo version of 45 that changed everything. But we all knew there was something in that song, and that was the first time I knew this band has something.
Wow. That reminds me of when I read the story about Dimebag using the 4-track demo for the opening riff to Cowboys from Hell on the actual album because they couldn't replicate the sound that they got from that cassette in the studio.
Sometimes you just get handed a gift and you just got to take it.
Well, as the band is building up to Shinedown 8, there are a ton of songs from the catalog that have become staples.
Yeah.
So much so that you have more songs than you can play in any given night at a concert, unless you did the 3-4 hours for a night.
I don't think Brent's voice would last 3-4
hours. But there are some tracks that I think are important to the band's legacy. Personally, maybe, but Adrenaline, the opening track from Amaryllis, or I Dare You from Us and Them, that haven't been broken out over the last few tour cycles. How does the band make the difficult decision over which songs get kind of shuffled in and out when crafting that tour set list as the catalog continues to grow?
It's very difficult. We fight like cats and dogs about it sometimes. Zach is really good at putting a set list together, and a lot of times he'll come up with like 3 or 4, and then we kind of talk about those because Eric and I you guys just tell us what you want to play. Because at this point, I'm tired of arguing with you, and the songs I want to hear are maybe not the ones. And then we really have to look at our fans, and you can, it's one of the great things about the internet now is you can look at the plays of songs. You can look at the views of videos, and you can go, that, who would have thought that, the Monsters video is one of our biggest watched songs of all time? Well, we have to play that song. But we want to play some of the new stuff. And I'd love to play Adrenaline again. That's a fun one for me to play live.
Oh, it's a badass drum beat.
I'd love to play Black Cadillac. Black Cadillac was a blast, and that actually was a single in the UK. So when we go there, we can play that song. Over here, people don't really know it. It's a deep cut. Cyanide Sweet Tooth off of Sound of Madness, another fun one that I love. It's just getting harder and harder, and you can only fit so much in 90 minutes, and there's curfews. So we can only go up to the curfew, It's like, I'd love to play 3 more songs.
All right, so I have to follow up then. You're given full carte blanche. The band just says, you know what, Barry? It's on you. Come up with a set list tonight. Would the set list be similar to what people see on any given night, or would you be throwing out some personal curveballs?
It would definitely not be the norm. There would be curveballs. I can tell you there's certain songs I wouldn't play. I don't want to hear Simple Man again. It's not even our song. I don't want to hear it anymore. I know the fans love it. I'm over it. I'm over not playing during that 5-minute escapade of a Skynyrd song. That one's gone. So it's easier to tell you what I guess I would get rid of for a minute. 45, as much as my heart loves that song, kind of overplaying it. Let me put something else in. I would probably play I Dare You Again. I would play Cyanide. I'd get some deep cuts in there. One of Brent's least favorite songs that we've ever recorded, Better Version, off the first record. I actually really enjoy playing because the drum parts on there are a lot of fun. So I'd make him sing that again. And then, you know what I do is I would probably do a poll on our socials and go, what do you guys really want to hear that are the deep cuts? I know you want to hear Second Chance. I know you want to hear Symptom. I know you want to hear Sound of Madness, and I get it. We should play those songs. What are the other ones? And I'd build a set list completely off of that. And then I'd end on a big song.
I was going to say, I told Eric that one of the songs that I have for the last 4 years wondered how it didn't make attention was A New Way to Die, the song that ended up on the Walmart exclusive download edition, and Japan got that track on the CD, but us in the US didn't. That song is pardon the pun, an absolute monster. That would be my vote.
That would be fun because we've never played that together as a band live ever.
Really?
That was recorded, and then we never looked at it again. I've never played that song with my band members all in one room, ever. So that would actually be a lot of fun.
Well, on the flip side to the deeper cuts, are there any Shinedown songs that you guys could never skip for fear of the chaos that might ensue?
Second Chance, for sure. Symptom, I think at this point, Monsters. Unfortunately, Simple Man, because we tried that one. We dropped it once, and we got a lot of backlash. Enemies, especially live. People love that song live, and it's a fun one to play. I don't mind playing it. Unity, and I don't enjoy playing Unity. I don't.
Really?
No,
I'm not going to lie. That surprises me because there's something that's going on in the song. I don't want to say it's necessarily the timing.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It kind of it does that shift, which sometimes I find distracting for my own self when I'm playing, because that's one of those where I played for what the song needed, but it wasn't exactly a natural motion for me, what I wanted to play in my head. It was more like coming to that compromise when we were creating that song in the studio. Like, we needed to do this. Can you play this? Yeah, but I wouldn't play it that way. Yeah, but we need you to play that. Cool, let me play that. So when you take it to a live, I'm always going, doesn't feel natural to me. It's not what I would have necessarily done. Not that it'd be very different, but it's like writing with your opposite hand for a second. I wouldn't have done that, but that's what the song needs. So I'm going to have to do that. So that's why Unity kind of gets under my skin. But it's a crowd favorite, and it's a great song, and it should be played, and it's got a great message.
All right. Well, I want to turn the conversation to Philanthropy for a moment here.
Yeah.
Last year, the band released hot sauces that were in conjunction with the Torchbearer Company, and that included Attention, Mango Habanero Sauce, Symptom Chipotle Garlic, and Devour Pineapple Jerk, with a portion of the proceeds of these going to Musicians on Call, which is a nonprofit that brings live music to the bedsides of patients, families, and caregivers in hospitals. Can you talk about the band's mindset about giving back over the years and why you guys do ventures such as this one?
I think when you are lucky enough to put yourself in a position to where you can give back, you should. And the four of us being from the backgrounds we come from being, I guess, we grew up with good parents that taught us values, and taught us to give instead of take as much as you possibly can, and now that we have the ability to, why wouldn't we? I think you should. And I think it warms your heart probably more than anything else. It's just what you should do if you have the opportunity. If you can drop a nickel in a bucket for somebody that really needs it, then just do it. And don't tell everybody that you do. I don't go out there and say, hey, I've done this and this and this and this for charity. We've done a lot for different places. We have. It's not about the attention you get from it. It's just about doing it. And I've got the ability now.
And I want to bring that up because back in 2019, I caught the band's tour in Guilford, New Hampshire, when it was Shinedown, Bad Flower, Dinosaur Pile Up, and Broken Hands. And on that tour, I'll never forget this, Dinosaur Pile Up had the band's stage banner draped over their amplifiers because it had broken. And my wife and I talked about that. I said, oh my God, this poor band on the ride home, they have this opportunity to come from the UK, share this tour of the States. They're introducing their music to people all over the country. What a shit thing to happen to them that it broke. And not even a couple of days later, I see the article that you guys went out and got them a new backdrop for the rest of the tour. That's unheard of. Usually the vibe is that it's kind of a dog eat dog world on the rock scene, but you guys are going against that grain and showing that it's a community. And I know you won't applaud the band for doing it, but I wanted to applaud the band for doing something like that because I'm a huge fan of Dinosaur Pileup because of Shinedown introducing me to them.
Right. And I can tell you why one of the reasons we do things like that. And all I can do is give thanks to Three Doors Down. When we were a young band, first record had just come out, Three Doors Down took us out. And they ended up taking us out for, I think, 9 months total on that, was the Beyond the Sun tour. When they were at the top of their game, they were the biggest thing in rock at the time. And we were the dumbest band in rock at the time. We were young punk kids making all the mistakes, didn't know how to load in properly, didn't know how to do it. And instead of them, berating us as some bands do, or some bands' crews do, it's typically not the band, it's the other band's crew that, treats the opening band like shit. They went, hey, let me show you how you can do that better. Let me show you how to wrap a cable properly. All these things that you don't learn as a baby band that you have to learn later in life. Or, hey, I see you running audio this way. Let me help your audio guy because you guys are taking way too much time getting on and off the stage. Let's help you out. And they helped us for 9 months and taught us so much and didn't ask for a thing aside from, hey, hope you guys had a good time. And we took that to heart, all of us. And especially Brent and myself, now that, that the lineup has changed, but I'll never forget the grace of that band. And I'll tell you this too, out of all the bands we've toured with, I can barely count on 3 fingers bands I would never want to tour with again. The vast majority of the bands out there, including the huge ones like Kiss and Iron Maiden, even Van Halen, there's a reason they stuck around for a long time. And it's because of what they do. They might not like each other, but their band and their crew takes very good care of the opening bands. And that's, I think, shows why they stand the test of time. And I want to stand the test of time as well. And it's about helping those around you. It is a community. We're all working just as hard, and especially a band like Dinosaur Pileup. I know how expensive it is to cross the pond, especially as a baby band. What's it going to take out of us to throw a little bit of money together and go, hey man, get your name out there? That's simple. That's a non-starter, non-question, really.
Well, when I bring my family to see a Shinedown show, I know they're going to get some diversity in the music.
Sure.
Just for the last few years, for example, Papa Roach, Jelly Roll, Spirit Box, The Pretty Reckless, and now this year, Bush, as well as Morgan Wade, who was also a guest on this show in the past. Knowing her music, similar to Jelly Roll, is like a country/rock. You had mentioned earlier in our conversation that you guys kind of have those roots in the Southern rock backgrounds. Is that why you kind of diversify the lineup of the night, get a little bit of that Southern rock with a little bit of the heavier side of things?
I think we just want to make it interesting for the audience and for ourselves. We could do the same tour and aside from always somehow touring with Papa Roach because we love those guys, you want to mix it up. Yes, Papa Roach is on the chart. Breaking Benjamin's on the chart. We could go with all those bands that are our peers and on the same charts as us and everything else, but why not stir it up? We were so lucky enough to get Jelly Roll to open for us, and then the next thing you know, he's the biggest thing in the world. I'm happy for him. That's great. I'm glad we could even be a part of your ascension to the top. And I hope the best for Morgan Wade too. And, I like to see something different. And I like to see a female crushing it in this industry, especially in the alt rock countryside, because it still is pretty hard for a female in this industry, especially if you're going to lean that rock side. Spirit Box is a great example of that.
Yes.
Why not support our fellow friends and females and people that are working this business? So we want it to be different. We don't want it to be the same thing. We don't want it to be the greatest playlist of active rock radio. We want it to be everywhere, because if you're a music fan, you listen to everything. You look through what I've played in the past month, it's all over the place. It doesn't make sense, but that's how I was feeling that day. I was listening to P-Funk the other day just because I love P-Funk and I was in that mood. Tomorrow I could be listening to Maiden again and whatever, who cares?
I like the way you think, man, because this show, every week, it's a different topic or a different genre. And some people have actually reached out to me saying, man, you're all over the place with music. And I, in my brain, my response is there any other way? Like, I feel like if you love music, it's just, I want to consume all of it.
I always tell people, and I tell my daughter this a lot because she listens to music and she's got her own music that she listens to. And I go, I don't care what you listen to as long as it's makes you feel something and you feel good. Obviously, I'm going to monitor her because she's just 14. So, I don't want to listen to certain things. But, she gets into the Spotify's, iTunes, those things, and she finds her own lane. And she's more of a pop girl than I thought she'd be. Because initially, when she was coming up, we listened to Deftones together and Slipknot, and she enjoyed that. Now she's listening to Imagine Dragons and Benson Boone, and that's her thing. And I'm like, does it make you feel good? Yeah, okay, great. Because that's what I did as a kid.
Amen. As a father of two girls, I applaud that because my daughters both listen to as much Taylor Swift as they do the Interrupters. And because of me, I've taken them to see bands like Lamb of God and Metallica and John Fogerty and ZZ Top. I want them to go off into the world, if nothing else, having a musical education that comes from a little bit of everything and let them kind of form their own path.
Absolutely. You have to, because eventually they will. They're not going to listen to your music, but I listen to some of my parents' music. You know, certain things that my parents listen to, I love. Beach Boys, Allman Brothers, Phil Collins and Genesis. Absolutely. My parents introduced me to that. They wouldn't have introduced me to Nine Inch Nails. You know, it's just the way it goes. And nor would they listen to it. They'd say it's a bunch of shit, but it's that's the fun journey of music. And things hit everybody differently. You know, there's bands out there right now that people love that I'm like, why? I don't get it. But somebody does because they're huge. That's the love of music.
Subjective. Absolutely subjective.
Absolutely.
Now, when I spoke to Eric, he explained that Shinedown 8 would, spoiler alert, not be a concept album. So after back-to-back concept albums, Inattention, Attention, and Planet Zero, for you as the drummer, do you find it a disappointment or a relief not going the concept album route?
Thank God it's not a concept record. You know, I had a great time with Attention and Planet Zero. Attention was purposely a concept record. Planet Zero just happened to become one because of the time period, recording it during COVID. We were talking about what was going on in the world, and oh shit, we wrote another concept record. We purposely said, can we just get a collection of songs together that are fun and put out a record, like an old school rock and roll record? And that's what this one will be.
So can you talk about how Dance Kid Dance came together during the writing and recording sessions for that one?
That one came together really with those guys. I didn't hear it until it was completely done. Vocals are there. And even then I had to go, I'm not sure what they were writing about initially. And for me, I think it was kind of the tongue-in-cheek Dance Kid Dance. But then if you really listen to the lyrics, you know, the pills will make you dance. It's a lot darker. It's very tongue-in-cheek and makes you want to rock out. But if you listen to it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is a little darker than what you think. And I think it stems from the experience that Brent had during his addiction days and really knowing way too much about those things and overcoming that and really kind of not making a statement like watch out, but more of a, this is a statement. I know what you're going through. I've seen this. Maybe you want to watch out.
Now, the band chose to drop two songs simultaneously. Dance Kid Dance went to rock radio and 365 went to pop radio. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the thought process behind that move? Because releasing simultaneous singles to different formats is something you don't hear a lot of in modern music.
No, and we've been fighting to do it for years. Literally, probably since the Amaryllis record. We've been fighting like, why can't we service a song over here and then service a song over here? And typically you get shot down by management or the label. Typically the label at the time would just be like, well, we don't have the funding to push both of these up the chart. And we don't want to, take away from this one if we're pushing this. And it becomes a political quagmire and nightmare. And you're like, yeah, but why not? And you can never get a really straight answer. And we were finally able to I say we, nobody says no to Brent Smith. And he is a bulldog negotiator, and he's really grown a lot in the past 8-9 years as far as his shrewdness in business. And he basically doesn't take no for an answer. And you can see that in the climb of Symptom of Being Human. We were told no's a million times. It'll never do anything at Hot AC. It'll never make it to top 40. No, it's a great rock song, but they don't play that on Hot AC. They don't play rock. And he's like, well, why not? Let's just try it. And he was right. And it climbed the charts and it did really well. It was a marathon, not a sprint. It took a minute, but they got it. Riding on the coattails of that, he could look at them all and go, hey, I proved it last time. Let's shoot for them all right out the gate. And that's what we're doing. And it's exciting. It's exciting for us after, a 24-year career so far of going, not only are we still relevant, but we're still growing. And, the debut of these two songs, at least in the radio world, are our best debuts we've had to date. The most added, the most this, the most that, the most. And we're like, all right, we're doing something right. And that's important to us. So it was really a fight for many years. And finally we got our way. We screamed, begged, pleaded, rolled over on our back, threw temper tantrums, and finally got our way. And I think it's proof in the pudding, and it's also for us, it's kind of like putting our flag in the ground and going, look, rock isn't dead. And we're not the only rock band out there that deserves to be on these other places. And hopefully they start paying attention.
Well, I want to follow up on that because when you think about the last run of singles, which would be the poppier side of Shinedown in Get Up, A Symptom of Being Human, and 365.
Yeah.
Is there ever a pressure that the label or anybody is putting on the band to maybe steer it more towards the pop direction?
If they came to us and said that, it would be the biggest middle finger we could ever give to them.
Good.
Because that's not who we are. That's not who we are. We write the song, and if it happens to be a pop song, it's a pop song. If it happens to be a rock song, it's rock. If it's a punk song, it's a punk song. We write for ourselves first. And I will give credit to both management and the label that we've been with the whole time, Atlantic Records. They've never once tried. Never once have they said, hey, we want you to try to write a song like this, or why can't you, or any of those things. Even in the early days, they've been supportive, maybe frustratingly so for themselves, because it is a business, it is a music business, but they've let us be ourselves. But if you listen back to the the albums that we've put out there, just about every single record, if not all the records, if I think about it, have a little bit of everything on them. They really do. That's just what we do.
Well, when Eric and I talked, I did my part as a podcaster in my years in radio, and I asked what dirt he had on Shinedown 8. And he alluded to a few songs like Searchlight, The Killing Fields, and The Pilot. Are 365 and Dance Kid Dance a strong representation of the sound and style that fans can expect from Shinedown 8?
No, not at all. It's as eclectic as we always do. There's going to be things that you're going to be like, oh, I didn't expect that. And there's going to be some that are like, oh, that took my head off. You mentioned Killing Fields. I'm like, no. Is it a reflection of where we're at right now? Sure. But every song is its own little animal. And I think that's kind of the excitement of it. I think there's going to be some fun stuff that comes out that fans are going to really glom onto. And there's certain ones I'm thinking of in the back of my head. They're like, it's different. That one's different, but I love it. And then there's some that, oh yeah, that's just a straight ahead, hit you over the face, Shinedown rock song, and that, which I think Dance Kid is in a lot of ways. Get ready for a ride, just like we always do.
Is the working title just 8, or do you guys have something in mind?
That's literally the working title is 8. we have no idea what we're going to name it yet. Initially there was talks of Dance Kid Dance being the title of it because it kind of had that vibe in some respects. With Planet Zero and even with Attention, they just quickly raised their hands. It was like, oh, yep, that's got to be the album title. That just fits. This one also not being a concept and just being a collection of songs, that one thing hasn't raised its hand yet. And each one of us, because the Shinedown is a democracy, we're all 25%ers, but we're all very opinionated 25%ers. So sometimes we'll see what happens. And I'll give Brent the 26 because it's definitely, you have to have a leader, and he is the leader of Shinedown proudly and should be. He's got the vision more so than anybody.
So what you're saying is the Enemies video is true to form. That wasn't acting.
No, that's our personalities. Except there's no way in hell Zach could kick my ass. So that whole scene's full.
Now, normally this is where I would start wrapping things up for the evening, but tonight, folks, we're just getting warmed up. If you like what you're hearing on tonight's episode and you want to dive a little deeper, I've embedded a full Shinedown playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed this evening, as well as some video clips and photos from their debut performance this past summer at Madison Square Garden. You can find all of those on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com. All right, let's keep this sound of Shinedown celebration moving right along and roll into my interview featuring the one and only Eric Bass as he answers my first-timer guest question. What does the word mixtape mean to you?
Freedom, freedom, man. I think about just a different time, a different time in my life. I think about discovery. I think about, sitting in front of a radio, listening to Rick Dees or Casey Kasem or somebody like that trying to record songs as they went by on the radio. Like just a whole other time, man, of sharing music with people. Like there was something magical about your friend handing you a tape and just saying, listen to this. And you would because you didn't have anything else going on. It was like there wasn't music flying at you from 10,000 different places. It was like that mixtape got your whole attention. I'm sitting here right now because a buddy of mine handed me a long play tape with Back in Black on one side and Van Halen 5150 on the other side. And that was like one of my, I mean, I'd heard other rock music before that, but I'd had other mixtapes and stuff, but like that tape for some reason, man. I know it's not really a mixtape, but it's sort of a mixtape.
Oh, mixtapes came in all shapes and sizes and colors.
Long play mixtape, but I digested those things because I didn't have any other choice. You hung on to those tapes like they were a diamond ring, and they were. It's like, where's my tape with this on it and that? I remember distinctly running into my sister's rooms and asking them about certain tapes. Like, where's my pink tape with this thing on it? My Memorex with it says this on it, and they would have it or they wouldn't know where it was. And they'd be in a panic because you couldn't find your music.
That is awesome. Well, tonight we are here to talk about your debut solo album, I Had a Name. But before we get into the album, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we got here. As you joined Shinedown in 2008 around the Sound of Madness cycle, and from there you started taking on a role of writing and then producing with the band, starting on 2010's Diamond Eyes and then continuing through several of my personal favorite Shinedown songs such as Unity, I'll Follow You, and Cut the Cord. Can you talk about the transition from joining Shinedown to becoming a songwriter within the group and how they embraced your contributions from the jump?
Well, interesting. I'll give you a little backstory on that. I was a record producer, studio rat around the time that I joined Shinedown. I'd come into that role of loving the recording studio. It was something that was always ingrained in me, but I'd been producing and engineering my own stuff, very self-taught, probably for 5, 6, 7 years prior to joining Shinedown. But through that process of writing and producing other artists, a lot of upstart artists, a lot of young bands. I didn't really like working with established bands. I still don't like working with established bands. I'd much rather work with a band who's hungry, who's trying to break out, than a band who's already doing it. But through that process, I met a gentleman named Steve O. Robertson, and he was VP of A&R at Atlantic Records, and he had signed Shinedown. And he called me one day and he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this band Shinedown?" And I said, "No, I have not heard of this band Shinedown." Not because I hadn't heard of the band, because a lot of people had. I was buried in a recording studio. I didn't hear a lot. I actually didn't hear a lot of new music at the time, whether on purpose or just as a result of doing what I do. But he said, "Oh, well, they did that cover of Simple Man." I was like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that." And then he mentioned Save Me, and I was like, "Oh, I've heard that song too." So I knew who the band was. And he said, "Well, hey, Brent, the singer, is writing for their next record, and would love to send him to write with you and record some demos and whatnot." So Brent came to Charleston at some point in 2007. That's when I first met him, early 2007. And I rolled up to get him at his hotel. This dude comes rolling out of the hotel, pink hair, the whole nine. We got in my car. We went to a show. I forget what the show was. We went to the Music Farm here in Charleston, South Carolina, and we went to a show, and we proceeded to get annihilated on the Jägermeister. Like, I mean, done. I had to call my wife. I had to call my wife to come get us. I was like, I can't, like, you're gonna have to come get us. So that was my first introduction to Brent. We partied pretty hard that night. And then we wrote the next day. We worked the next day. We wrote for 2 or 3 days. And then I had this idea. I'm like, hey, I really love producing bands. Like, these songs are starting to come together. What do you think about bringing the band in? And like, let's like record these songs properly. Like, I didn't do like finger drums, like in the box drums and stuff back then. Like, I worked with bands, that's so like, what do you think about bringing the band in? He's like, well, I can have the drummer here probably tomorrow, the next day. And, the guitar player after that, we don't have a bass player right now. Our bass player's left the band. And I was like, that'll work. So Barry came to town. I met Barry. He and I hit it off instantaneously. So Brent and Barry and I were very, not close, but we really gelled together very quickly. I think, and fast forward this many years, I know exactly why. We all have kind of similar moral backgrounds and whatever else, you know. But Jason Todd, who was the guitar player in the band at the time, the original guitar player in the band, showed up 2 days after Barry. Barry had recorded some drums, I think, already at that point. And as soon as Jason showed up, man, everything went out the window, went to shit. He and Brent had a pretty codependent, toxic drug habit relationship with each other. And so as soon as Jason showed up, the drugs started, and then just nothing happened after that.
Oh, wow.
Like the whole thing shut down. The whole thing went out the window, the whole writing session. And so we left, they left without, we didn't complete anything. We didn't really complete song. We had the songs were like working, but like we never completed them. And interestingly enough, Brent left right from me. He went and worked with Rick Beato, and Rick had produced some songs on Leave a Whisper, the first Shinedown record. And interestingly enough, before Brent came to work with me, actually, I called Rick. Rick and I were managed by the same person, and we were friends. And, you know, I wouldn't say colleagues or anything, but we were definitely friends. And so I called Rick and was like, this is pre-YouTube Rick Beato. But I great producer, man. Great producer. Obviously a super talented guy. I mean, everybody sees
I was gonna say, I love his videos, man.
Genius individual. Genius gets thrown around a lot in our business, but he absolutely is. I don't know if he would accept that or not, but he's just highly intelligent on many different levels, but extremely intelligent musically. Anyway, I called him. I was like, hey, man, tell me about this Brent Smith character. And he kind of told me, he's like, he's super intense, you know, and he kind of gave me some kind of a heads up about Brent. Just nothing bad, just that he was intense and kind of how he worked best. But anyway, so that whole thing fell apart and they left. But Steve-O Robertson hit me up after that. And he was like, well, man, we didn't get anything. And I kind of told him why. He goes, well, hey, you know, they're looking for a bass player. You know, I know you play. And I was like, well, I play studio bass. I really was traditionally a guitar player, but I play bass a lot in the studio. He's like, hey, you know, what do you think about maybe coming and they like you a lot, you know, maybe joining the band? And I'm like, man, after seeing that dysfunction, I was like, I built this recording studio. My wife and I have a lot invested in this. I've got this whole career. I can't see leaving it for that. And it was, you know, it sucked. I mean, it was kind of like this, like I had to make an adult decision about it at that point, you know.
Hate it when that happens.
Well, fast forward to early 2008. Or was it late? It was late 2007. I get another call from Steve, and he's like, hey, man, look, that guitar player that was there, Jason, and Jason's a fine person. This is not me casting any sort of, I have no opinions one way or the other, but Jason's not in the band anymore. And Brent's really trying to clean up. We've got a new guitar player named Zach, and they would love it if you would come, you know, audition for the band. And I don't know, man. I don't know what it was in that moment. It's the fact that I was being asked twice by someone I respect a lot. I respect Steve-O Robertson an awful lot, and I still do, even after all these years. He's no longer with Atlantic, but he's just one of my close favorite people in the business. But maybe it's the fact he was asking me twice, and I said, okay, you know, send me the song. So he said, well, learn this song and this song, and they sent me, I think, Second Chance and Sound of Madness and Devour, I think, were the 3 new songs they sent. And then I went down to Orlando and played my audition. And then that night, you know, got offered the job. And again, man, we were all just getting along so well. You know, it's like, it's one thing to play music with people. It's another thing to just feel like I know these people already. And interestingly enough, there's a picture of that very afternoon. The guy next door in the warehouse space next door wanted a picture with the band for some reason. And I hadn't even been offered the position or whatever. You know, at the time, and they're like, you want a picture with the band? I kind of stood over the side, and Brent's like, come on in, man. You know, so like I'm already taking pictures with the band at that point. But there's a picture from that day, which is of the 4 of us, which is interesting. So I guess that's just my way of saying, you know, our relationship started in the studio. Our relationship started in producing and writing. Now, as far as getting the trust of everybody, I mean, look, I got dropped into one of the most insane records in rock history, first of all, that I would love to take credit for, but I had nothing to do with. Chris Chaney played bass on the record. You know, not a slouch.
No, not at all.
So Diamond Eyes happened because Sylvester Stallone called the band and he said, hey, I'm looking for a band to write a song for this movie that I'm making called The Expendables. And here's a little bit about it. Here's what I want it to be. And he sent over this poem, and I forget the name of the poem, but the beats at the end of every verse would say boom, lay, boom, lay, boom. And he's like, the only thing I want in the song is boom, lay, boom, lay, boom. That's how the boom, lay, boom thing happened in Diamond Eyes. It wasn't us. It was Sylvester Stallone, his idea. He wanted that from that poem. That poem ties into the movie. So I just took it. I was like, challenge accepted. Like I didn't even ask any questions. I was like, we're gonna write this song. This is gonna happen, you know. And so we're on tour, and I recorded this music, demo music on tour, and then Brent took the demo music to his hotel room, wrote a couple things. He and I got up together. We wrote. Well, Zach came up with a guitar lick, by the way. Let me specify that. Zach came up with a guitar lick on stage at a sound check. That boom, wow, da da da, wow, boom, wow. That Zach came up with that. I took all that stuff, put it into a demo form. Brent took the music, wrote the lyrics. We had them figured out. I took the band back to Charleston on a break. We recorded all the music at my studio, and then Brent couldn't make it for that session, so we were back out on tour. We actually went to Johnny K, the producer Johnny K, who's produced, you know, Disturbed and Seven Dust and I think Chevelle and a bunch of other people. We were in Chicago. We went to his studio, and he produced the vocal. He recorded the vocals for that. So we got in the studio with him and did the vocals, and sent it to Chris Lord Alge to mix, and Diamond Eyes was born. And I think from there, man, it was just like, you know, look, man, this is what I was born to do. You know, I was born to create in a studio. That's, I mean, if I was born to do one thing, for better or worse, for painful or not painful, this is what I was made to do. And you know, then it was just, you talk about the trust thing. There's a lot of trust in a writing relationship, in a songwriting relationship, you know, and you know, it takes a while to develop. You know, you have to get in a room with somebody and really see what makes each other tick, and see how the process works for the two of you together, or the three of you together, or the four of you together in some insane cases. That's insanity to me, four people in a room writing a song, but three at the most usually, but two preferably. But Brent and I had to get in a room and sort of figure that stuff out. And so when it came time to start writing for Amaryllis, I had a lot to learn about songwriting. I was used to being a big fish, small pond kind of thing, I guess. I was used to making decisions that I thought were great, and songwriting decisions, production decisions, and by the way, by this time, I mean, the band, we toured so much on Sound of Madness record. I believe it's not actually in the Guinness Book of World Records, but it is a record for the most shows played on one record cycle, I believe. It's like 400,
Wow.
400 and something shows we played on that record cycle, I believe. High 300s, low 400s, but it's a lot. And so by this time we were all super close. I mean, there was no, you know, there's no way we didn't know each other by this point. But knowing each other in that way, even though we'd done Diamond Eyes, it was like, you know, okay, was that a fluke? This number one song that had this slow burn at radio, and it went on the extended edition, of re-released edition of the Sound of Madness record, is what that's on. So I got in a room with Brent and Dave Bassett first, and we wrote some together, and that went well. And then Brent and I wrote 2 or 3 songs with just the two of us. One of those songs was "I'll Follow You," although Dave ended up adding some. We added a bridge to that song when we got in the studio. The whole lyrical bridge wasn't in the original demo, so Dave's a writer on that song, but Dave wrote the bridge. But the song was pretty much in its, other than that, was in its finished form. But I had a lot to learn, because it was like, I'm getting all this pushback on things. I'm getting pushback on lyrics. I'm getting pushback on music and all this stuff, and I'm just not used to that. And it became very difficult for me. And I'm I don't talk too often about my neurodivergence, but I've got ADHD, executive dysfunction, and autism, and just different aspects of those things. But I'm extremely rejection sensitive, right? And so and it feels painful to me. Rejection is painful. It's like it's this physical thing. It's been that way my whole life. I just never knew what to call it until I was, you know, sort of diagnosed more recently with this stuff. But man, that was just really super painful for me. So I had to, that began the beginnings of me really getting thick skin. Like I realized very quickly with songwriting, because I wasn't, you know, here's another thing I was very used to. I was very used to every single thing that I worked on, every single thing that I wrote was precious and mattered and all of this stuff. And then you get into, you know, a writing session and you realize maybe this song isn't happening, and people want to abandon it, that it's not like you're throwing your child away. Like, it's like, no, we just need to move on, you know, but it had this like visceral effect on me. But that record writing process was a good process for Brent's and my relationship as well as creators, and, you know, learning how to create together. And then the band got really healthy. You know, Brent was able to get clean, and we all got super healthy, seemed healthy anyway, on that touring cycle for Amaryllis. And then when we came off of that tour, Brent just hit a wall and crashed back into addiction, and my depression kicked in, and I got a pill habit, out of that. I started taking a lot of hydrocodone and just to feel better. It made me feel invincible. And and so we fell into this really bad place, all of us, in that writing cycle for Threat to Survival. And I didn't do a lot of writing on that record. I wrote 2 songs on that record. One of them was Cut the Cord, which I produced as well. And the other one was Black Cadillac.
Yep.
The other song. But then starting into that touring cycle, we all had a very, very big wake-up call and actually got healthy. Right in the beginning of that touring cycle. But then we, the spirit of this band really emerged during that time, I would say. The current spirit of this band anyway, what I would pin as our identity. And that really enabled me to be way more creative in the band and to ultimately co-write most of Attention. There's some songs that I didn't write on that album, but I love every song on that album, and I produced and mixed that album as well. And then into Planet Zero, the last record, and now into this new Shinedown record that we're currently working on, the same thing. Interestingly enough, this new Shinedown record, the eighth Shinedown record, I'm actually more hands-off than I've been since over the last 2, namely because of this record of my own. So, Zach and Brent have been writing an awful lot on this record. I've written quite a few songs. I mean, it's not like not existent or something, but by way of comparison, if I think about the 24 songs that were written for Planet Zero that I wrote every single, I was a writer on every single one of those songs. I think on, so far on this record, I'm on like 9, 10 songs, something like that, so far. We have some more writing to do, but it's been actually pretty painful to kind of not be able to do 2 things at once. I wish my brain worked like that, but I have to be creatively, I have to be doing one thing at a time for that thing to be great, whatever that is. If I'm doing a Shinedown record, that's all I'm doing. If I'm doing an Eric Bass record and videos, that's all I'm doing, because something's going to suffer. And so I've had to be in this like video making promo land of rolling this record out of I Had a Name record. But again, no back seat's been taken. The interesting thing is, man, is those relationships that have been forged in our band in chaos and in love and in everything else, like that stuff is never going to go away. Shinedown would make the most boring reality show of all time. We all love each other. We all get along. We all support each other. I mean, the I Had a Name record is out because my band encouraged me to put it out, because I've been sitting on it for a while and I just wasn't sure I was going to release it. And just out of insecurities and everything else, and I made it for myself. I recorded purely for myself, and I didn't, I just loved the fact that it existed. So, but they were like, man, you have to put this thing out. So yeah, I know maybe that's more than what you were asking about in your initial question. I kind of went through the timeline there, but yeah, my relationship with Shinedown was founded in the studio, not really on stage, and it continues to be where I'm more comfortable. My role in the studio with this band, I'm way more comfortable with than my role on stage, for sure.
And that's something that you hear when you listen to the albums Attention and Planet Zero, as you took on the full producer role on both of those albums. However, I Have a Name was actually written during the Attention tour as a graphic novel.
Mm-hmm.
Care to explain a little bit about how the graphic novel became a solo album?
Yeah, because I'm sadistic. That's how. Because I don't know how to just do one hard thing. I got to do 12 hard things. Yeah, I was the first European tour for Attention, hotel room in Milan, Italy. I just got done with a workout. I'd listened to Biohazard's State of the World Address.
Nice.
A record that I love from back in the day that I hadn't listened to in a long
hell
time.
Yeah.
Love that record, man. I just love that record. Talk about a record that like puts me in a place. The State of the World Address puts me instantly in like 1996. Playing in hardcore bands and touring in vans. Like that's where my brain goes.
I still have the orange CD jewel case embedded in my brain. So.
Yeah, dude, that was the thing, man. Like that record, looked and sounded chaotic. I love it. Still love it. But I hadn't listened to it in a while when I did that workout. And I don't know if that has anything to do with this story, but I always preface it with that because maybe there's some, maybe there was something to that. But I just got done listening to that, did a workout in the room, and I had a voice. And I think a lot of people experience this, a voice in your head that maybe isn't yours that guides you occasionally. And that voice said, you might want to write this down. And so I picked up my journal that I write all my lyrics in and stories in and started writing this story idea down for a comic book. And I've never been a comic book guy. That's the other interesting thing about it. In fact, the next day I called Eric Rickert, who is one of my best friends in the world and has always been my help here at the studio, my assistant engineer here at the studio, or main engineer, depending on the day. But he's a comic book fanatic, like still gets, every month gets deliveries to the house and reads them, knows all the storylines and everything. And I was like, I just started grilling him about comics because I graphic novels. I was like, what do I need to read graphic novel wise? Because like for some reason, I was told to write this idea down that I'm supposed to make this graphic novel. I know that sounds woo-woo to people who don't understand it, but anybody who's ever had, something from beyond tell them something, that's just what it was. It was like, okay, I'm supposed to do this thing. And so I called him like, what should I read? What should I get into? And he gave me some, because I'm obsessed with story. I wanted the story to be good. I wanted to see what do you think are some of the best graphic novel stories out there? And he mentioned Saga. Saga was one of them. And I read Saga and it's excellent. But I just like to know, like, what world am I getting ready to play in? Like, what is this about? Not the story. Like, what is this whole thing about? Like, what's going on right now? Why a graphic novel? Why is that what it's supposed to be? But instantaneously, man, I saw visuals, like instantly. Like I just saw characters and visuals and scenes. And interestingly enough, that what I wrote down ended up being sort of the prequel story to the story I'm telling I will be telling in the graphic novel, and I tell on the record. Because as I started developing characters, I started seeing these side characters that were like, they're more interesting to me. And I picked those characters up. That's why it took a long time, because I started working on this kind of first part of the story. And then these other two characters in particular just raised their hand and were like, we're super interesting. And so then I kind of started from scratch with them and started writing this graphic novel. And it's well on its way. I mean, Act 1 is completely written. Act 2 and 3 are there, just not finished. And then somewhere along the way with that, I had these pieces of music that I was toying around with just on tour on that attention cycle. And I remember going to Brent and I said, hey man, are you in any headspace to start working on a new Shinedown record? And he said, absolutely not, because he does not like to write on tour. But I had to ask him. I said, well, I've got these pieces of music that they're pretty different. They would either make the most different Shinedown record of all time, or I need to use them for this thing. I've got an idea for them. And he's, he's like, go do your thing. He's like, I won't be ready to write for another, year. So that's kind of where the genesis of the record started. And I started writing these lyrics about these characters and these stories about these characters in song form. And what the record is, what I had a name it's chronological in nature. I mean, it's going from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, but it's just scenes from. It's not really telling you exactly what's happening. Is I was pulling out. It's the same thing I do when I'm writing other songs. Like, if I have something in my head, a scene that I feel like is interesting, something I saw or experienced that I want to write about, that's what I do. And so I just did the same thing with these fictitious stories and characters. And I found it very, very easy to write, lyrically, very easy to write. All of these songs were very easy to write. And I mean, I'm not saying there weren't moments of, like you have with every song, or every, where you have to sit and kind of figure out, like, I need an I rhyme and I can't figure out what it is. And maybe the I rhyme isn't there, so you have to change the word before it to an E rhyme so you can say the E word here, that kind of stuff. I'm not talking about the that sort of logistical part of songwriting. I'm talking about just everything pouring out was happening very naturally. And at some point I was listening back to one of the songs, a song called Goodnight Goodnight. It's the 5th track on the record. And it's very personal to me. It's it's probably one of the more personal songs on the record. And I realized, you ever have one of those moments where you have a shocking thought or a shocking revelation about something and you get ice through your veins, that shocking thing. And I had that happen. I was like, oh my God, I've written the most autobiographical record of my career, or I am writing the most autobiographical record of my career through these characters. Like, you're not just talking about these characters, you're talking about yourself. Like, every single one of these songs is from you, from your childhood, from your current life, from your depression, from whatever. And what that really did for me is that enriched the record, because now I just didn't have characters anymore. I had characters that were representative of pieces of me and pieces of, and I realized that in a lot of cases when writers are writing, they're doing that. Everything that you make is a piece of you, but this was a lot more literal, like where I could look at a character like Devarin, who is the dictator who has taken over this world. He's the main character in the Mind Control song and video, first single. And he represents all of the chaos and depression and everything that crept in and took over my brain. If you take this world that we're living in as my brain, then he's the thing that came in and took over. There's another character named Jeff, and Jeff is this ancient Titan protector. He's one of the former protectors of this world. He's actually the main character in the prequel stories. He was my first character, my first Genesis character that I had for this. And he was called what's called a Dark Eater, and the Dark Eaters ate all of the darkness in this world. And here you go. I'm writing this story not even thinking about depression at all, but here I am writing this whole thing about it. Even that far back, these Titans called Dark Eaters, and they would consume all of the darkness of this world and filter it out. And Devarin came along and killed all of the Dark Eaters, at least he thought. Jeff is the one that's left. And Jeff represents that former protection that you used to have, like in childhood. Like it's at some point I was a blissfully ignorant, happy child, and didn't deal with these thoughts, and I didn't ruminate on my mental state so much, and at some point that thing came in and took it over, and so I have a character named Azalia, and Azalia, she basically fights against the fact that she's supposed to be this religious figure, and she's supposed to be this spiritual religious figure, but she's taken on the role of this assassin. And so, if I look at her and what I'm writing about with her, it's this journey of faith and my journey back to faith from not having it to rediscovering it. And so there's all this depth to this record that again, it was kind of shocking for me to realize what I was writing about. When I'm writing in the song Azalia, and I'm singing in the bridge of this song, it gets quiet, and I'm supposed to be her, maybe her conscience or something, talking to her, singing to her, and I'm just telling her not to give up. You can't give up. You got to, like, even when not till there's no more breath in your lungs, when all is lost, even past all is lost, until there's no other option left, you don't give up. And you realize that, like, that's that thing in my brain that keeps me going too. And so it's just been, starting with this graphic novel idea into this record, then having that realization made the writing of the rest of the graphic novel. Not that, and again, nowhere in this graphic novel or in this record does it talk about depression, or does it talk about darkness, or rather internal darkness or neurodivergence or any of these things. They're representative of those things, unintentionally representative of those things. But what it did was, when I went back into the book writing and into the graphic novel writing, it just gave me so much more insight into the characters, and it made the writing of the story so much more rich and enriching for me as well.
Well, you've always been open about your struggles with depression, and it's come out through the band's music. And it's something that I personally admire of you as well as the band, because there are songs like Get Up or A Symptom of Being Human. These are songs that speak to me. I'm someone who myself has been dealing with anxiety and battling that monster for years and maybe decades. And songs like that I use for strength and comfort when I get in my head. They bring me balance and they keep me grounded, because sometimes with my struggles, I feel like I'm alone on an island. And these are songs that when I hear lyrics like that, they speak to me as a fan. And I know that, we don't know each other personally, but through this song, I know I'm not alone. And from the first lyrics in A World Unseen, you announce, in here, we're all a little bent, we're all a little twisted, and we're all a little broken. Right from the jump in this situation, I feel like even though you're saying that the album's not about mental health, it spoke to me that way. And when I listened to the album, I actually felt that presence in these songs. Was that something that you were looking to achieve with that?
No, that's why I'm so astonished. When I said I had that moment of, like, realization where it shocked me, was that when I wrote those lyrics, in here, we're all a little bent, we're all twisted, we're all a little broken. Or when I'm inviting people in a world unseen, welcome to a world unseen, where I'm told the sky moves under me, like it's upside down, a place where reason has no sound, and I swear that God's gone underground. I was writing about this world, right? All of those lyrics were written prior to that realization. And then I'm listening to Goodnight Goodnight. And what Goodnight Goodnight is about leaving that child that you were, because I don't long to be a child again. But I'm enamored that I had this moment of in my life when depression wasn't a part of it. Like, what happened? What took place that brought this in? Because if I could pick that piece of my brain out and throw it away forever, I always said I would. Creatively, it's something that makes me tick. So I don't know if I would throw it away, but like I have those, when I'm down in it, I want to pull that piece of my brain out and just eject it and get rid of it, because it is beating me about the head. It will not leave me alone. So I think back to, like, what happened to that child? What happened to that young guy that didn't have to deal with this? And so Goodnight Goodnight, in essence, again, this was the realization as I'm writing about this characters. The hook at the end of the chorus says, "I hope you're standing arm in arm with the things that did you harm, and I hope that you have a good night." Meaning, just, I hope that you're still happy, and even the things that harmed you, you're still okay with. But then realizing that, like, no, I'm talking about myself. So having that realization after the fact of, like, no, I didn't intend to write that down as meaning, in here we're all a little bent, we're all twisted, we're all a little broken. But now I can't hear it any other way. I still see the characters. It's still about the characters. It's still about the story. But realizing that this world that I've created, that these characters live on, this world called PAR, P-A-R, is, and look, I wish I could come up with better names, but sometimes when the universe speaks to you and says, your world is called PAR, you just go with it. But that is my brain at the end of the day. Like, I'm writing about this world that is my brain and my soul and my heart. And it's not just brain. It's way more than that. But it was all completely unintentional. And it's why when I'm doing, and again, I'm the world's worst business person. I'm a creative through and through. And when it comes to the business side of things, how to market, I'm horrible. I'm just terrible at it. I can make the donuts, but I don't really know how to sell the donuts. So I'm terrible at selling the donuts. So when we were talking about, when I was filling in the team, my management team and the people at one RPM, who the distribution company, and I'm a publicist, and about the record, they all latched on to the depression, neurodivergent, this record was written about blah, 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 and I had to stop and say, no, it was not written about that. Like, that's why I don't lead with that normally, because it's like, I don't want people to think that, oh, I set out to write this record and I just made them characters. No, that's not what happened. I'm writing about these characters. These characters are genuine. They're real. The story exists. It is what it is. It's just that I was writing so honestly about the subject matter that, and I didn't realize how much of myself I was pouring into this thing. And then when it was finished, it's like, oh, wow, man, you've just bared it all out here through these characters. And here's the interesting thing about that is some people will listen to it and maybe not get that wholly. Like, they won't understand, well, in this song, what is this about? What does this mean? That's good. I don't want it to be a distraction when people are listening to the record. I don't want them thinking, oh, this is, Eric having a sad dad moment, and he just wrote this record about being depressed. No, man, it's not at all. Ultimately, the story, this record and this book are just the first of 4 books that are going to be written and told. I don't know if I'll do a record for every single one, but ultimately at the end of that story, there's triumph down the road, but you got to start somewhere, and right now we're in the, you got to start in the darkness to get to the light. But yeah, man, I hope that people listen to it and can pull something from it that will be helpful to them, because at the end of the day, I realize as I've gotten older that, my job on earth isn't to be a musician. My job is to help people. And it's really something I'm passionate about. And I only really know one way to do that, to help people. And that's just through the silly little things that I make, whatever that is, whether it's a song or a video or a album, or, and some people won't say it's silly, but I like calling them my silly little things, because it's playtime, man. It's frivolous. It's insane that a 50-year-old man can make a living making songs, but that's what we do. So I would be dishonest if I didn't talk about those things. Because part of me, look, at one point, I was like, maybe I shouldn't even bring this up because I don't want it to distract from the story or from the record. But I realized how important these things are. And there's not enough hope in the world. There's a lot of hope, but there's not enough of it. And so if someone can listen to a song like A World Unseen or All Good Children or Goodnight Goodnight or Can't Go Home, if they can listen to those things and pull something, Mind Control, if they can pull something out of it that helps them with what they're going through, then that's what matters. And so that's why I thought that it was probably pretty important to talk about, maybe not to lead with it, but to talk about it for sure.
Now, I've always wondered about the mindset of a single from within a concept album, because while I love hearing individual songs, let's use Planet Zero or Dead Don't Die from Planet Zero or Devil or the Human Radio from Attention Attention, as much as I love listening to them when they come on shuffle, I feel like they hit harder when you listen to the album as a whole. Maybe I'm that's just me getting the quote unquote full experience of the song from the artist's vision. But with that said, was it a challenge for you to decide which of these songs would be the best representation of the album in the months leading up to this release?
Months, try days. There was no single written for this record. So this has been a its own dark comedy in and of itself, this single picking business for this record, because unlike a Shinedown record, I can listen to the songs that we have written before we've ever recorded them for a Shinedown record and go, that's a single, 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 for sure. Sometimes all of them have potential to be singles if we've been blessed, right? But with this record, I intentionally just said, I'm not worried about time. I'm not worried about don't bore us, get to the chorus. I'm not worried about any of that stuff. I'm just going to write these pieces of music that maybe take a left turn here and come back. Maybe they take a right turn and never come back. You know, I'm just going to write these songs and they're just going to be what they are. I want to make pieces of art. I just want to make music. That's all I want to do. And so that's how I went about this whole record. Then when I finally decided to release the record, which actually wasn't that long ago, I said days, not months. So I mean, it was only a few months ago that I decided that I was really going to go at this in earnest. I'd say probably, honestly, probably July. But the record was finished, so that's a big part of it now. But then the question of single came up, and I was like, I've never thought about it. I never thought about this going to radio. I never thought about this having to be on playlists, or I just thought about people listening to the record beginning to end. That's what it's about. And so I couldn't pick it. I thought maybe a song called Azalia would be the single, but it's a little long, for a single for certain people that you have to placate. But I'm not going to edit it. I don't want to edit any of these songs. I don't want to pull anything out of it. If I were to pull the middle of Azalea out, it's just another rock song. I love the fact that it has this piano interlude thing in the middle, and it's what makes the song itself. So I sent the record around to a bunch of friends and other I say business people, that's a terrible way to put them, people in our camp who I'm very close to, and just said, hey, let me know what you think the single is. And everybody came back with a different answer. I mean, Brent thought a song called New Graves was the single. I thought Azalea was the single. Some other people thought Goodnight Goodnight was a single. All Good Children got thrown out there, and Mind Control. And it's just like, it ultimately everyone's saying, I mean, there were like a couple of songs that were outliers that no one talked about, but so then we had to have a call, and it's like, what are we doing? Like, this is, I don't know. I was almost like, take this out of my hands, because I don't know what the single is. Like I've told you that from the beginning. Like, I love all of these songs. Let's just find one. And everyone thought that it came down to Azalea or Mind Control, and everyone thought Mind Control was a lot more straightforward. The song starts immediately with the lyric, and it's high energy. And so that's how it happened, man. I mean, I wish there was some sexy way to put it, but it's like I've had just as much trouble figuring this out as anybody else. And I was in the midst of making the videos too, and I had to stop and I'm directing the videos and editing the videos and everything. So I had to make the Mind Control video, and I think it confused people because, again, one thing you learn in the record business is, like, there is no perfect plan. You just do it. Just put something out. Like, don't think about it too much. Don't try to be too calculated. If you're too calculated, it'll all fall apart. So this whole rolling out Mind Control, while not perfect in my mind, it's like, okay, that's what we're doing. We're rolling out Mind Control. Well, the WAL and Legion, which is like the two entities that make up the government in my world, their logo is that purple diamond looking thing. And so that Devarn's video is purple. Like, that's every character's video has a color. And so I was like, man, we're rolling right back out with the Planet Zero colors. It's like, people are going to think like, they're going to be confused, or B, they're going to think that we're not that creative, or I'm not that creative. But that's why purple again. So again, not in a perfect world, not what I would have done. But through this record making process and just trying to make the right decisions, I talked earlier about coming back into my faith, and since my father passed away, I've picked back up the Bible and got back into my faith. And one thing I did with this record was I just said, I asked for God's help with it. I was like, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do it. I was like, hey, I'll do the work, please. Of course I'm gonna do the work, but I'm putting this in your hands. You just lead me around. And so when Mind Control is just supposed to be the first single, that's what it is. I'm not questioning anything at all. There's a lot of peace in that, man. There's a lot of peace in not questioning and just doing. And so, because believe me, man, especially the video making process, has tried to fall apart a couple of times, like pretty hard. And it's just like, I just pivot to something else and pivot back to something else. And there's a lot of peace in that, of just knowing that I've put this in a higher power's hands, and that there's no wrong answers. It's just doing the thing. I'll give you a perfect example. The Mind Control video, I didn't realize until 3 days ago when I put headphones on was in mono. How about that? Everybody's been listening to the video in mono, and I didn't know it. And that would have spun me out before, like a couple years ago. I would be like, this is in mono. Oh my God, we got to fix this. I just very calmly went in and found it was my mistake, found out what had happened. It wasn't my mistake. It was something that had happened in an import that I didn't catch.
I hate it when that happens.
Somehow it had imported, instead of importing a left channel and a right channel, it imported 2 left channels.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, very, very strange. So left and left, which is better than left and right down the middle, but left and left. So it's probably why it still sounded pretty good. It's probably why I didn't notice it. There's nothing phasey about it coming through my speakers. I didn't, think about it. But I just very calmly went in, rebounced another audio file, and called the team like, "Hey, can we get YouTube to let us upload, another?" But just something like that, man. Just being more at peace with things maybe not going the way that I think they should go, because you realize that again, I feel like I'm here to help people, and so whatever I have to do to make that happen, there is no fire to get to. There's no reason to get angry about things like that. I mean, I get frustrated, of course. I'm a human, but I'm not a monk, but
Right.
it's been very calming to kind of release a record this way and just sort of not have to have all of this gravity around it. Like that's what tends to happen when you're releasing records and big projects is there's all this gravity and seriousness to it. And it's like I'm very serious about this. I spent a lot of time, a lot of effort on it, spent a lot of money, to put this thing out, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's just this is what it's supposed to be. It's very calming. It's almost off-putting for me in a way, like personally, to feel this way, because it's like this isn't how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be chaotic, and it just hasn't been that. But that sort of calming stuff started with the single. It was like, yeah, man, there is no wrong answer. Like, cool, Mind Control is the single. I wish I had a sexy answer where I was like, I knew from the beginning that was the single. No, man, I didn't know from the beginning. I'm still not sure. I don't even know if it's the best song on the record, but it's there.
All right, you've talked about it before, so I have to bring it up again. Azalia.
Yep.
To me, what stands out about this song is the dynamics in it. There are several different musical tones throughout this 4 minutes and 20-second runtime.
Mm-hmm.
The open almost feels like this whimsical, swirling dream sequence. The chorus is fucking pummeling, pardon my language there, but it is. And then you have the melodic bridge you talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But it all feels perfectly at home together. And I think the reason for that, and this is something I would love to ask you as you're a producer as well as a musician, there's actual dynamics in this song. The loudness wars aren't happening here. When you're quiet with just your voice and a piano, the song is quieter. It's not as loud as when the entire band is playing and it's a heavy, mountainous, thunderous part of the song. There's actual dynamics in the music.
Mm-hmm.
As a producer, I'd love to know your thoughts on, is that something that you were looking to do? Because I know in modern rock music, everybody's trying to push towards louder is better because of earbuds. But there are people out there that genuinely care about dynamics and sound. And as a producer, I'd love to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's for me, emotion has always been in the dynamics. Even in a loud song, I want the chorus to be a little louder than the verses. And I wish I say I haven't, I've developed a sense for that stuff over the years, and I've developed a technical way of making it happen in a mix that if anyone is curious about it, if they ever want to ask me, I'm happy to divulge. I don't have any secrets. But it just involves, and I know I'm not the only person that does this, but it involves working the master fader on the output of a song, when it's like, I want that chorus to move. A great example of that is Black Soul on Attention, Attention. Like the way that chorus hits, that chorus rips your head off when it kicks in. I love that, man. It's just, and Azalia does that too. And I'm glad you could feel that. And I appreciate that. Thank you to Ted Jensen, the legendary Ted Jensen, mastering engineer at Sterling Sound, because he masters all of Shinedown's records and all of my records, and anything I work on, I have him master, because he appreciates that stuff too. And believe me, man, it's something I have to come to terms with when I listen back to a mastered record that I made, which is, this is not going to be as loud as everybody else's record, probably, like comparatively. It's just not. But there's a volume knob there, and if you turn it up 3 clicks, 3 dB, whatever that is, then it will be as loud as everybody else's record, and it'll have dynamics. And so that is a conscious thing I do. I realized that I have to give up some loudness shock value in that, like everybody wants a loud record, man. I want a loud record. I want a really loud record. I want the loudest record out there. Everybody does. But you can't have it both ways. And so, yeah, man, it's a conscious thing. I definitely make those decisions. I'd much rather, I want something to breathe. I want it to move. I want it to, for me, it just makes the exciting parts more exciting, and that's what I'm after. I'm after that, I want the hair on my arm to stand up. And I know when I'm working on a mix when that happens. Like I'm like, that's it. That's the one. And there's something to learning how to play a mixing board like an instrument. I mean, even in my mixes, so even aside from working the master fader in the mix itself, where there are drum fills, I'm turning the whole drum kit up and down on drum fills. And then when the chorus hits, the drums are coming up a dB, maybe a dB and a half on the chorus, and then back down. And then maybe some of that guitar is coming in a little bit louder on the chorus. And, you're just sort of, I want this thing to breathe and be open. Like there's a tendency, not everybody, it's not a broad stroke I'm painting here. I'm not saying every mixer does this and I'm also not saying that I know what I'm doing. I just end up with a result that I like. But there's a tendency to just compress until you don't have to move any faders, especially with vocals. Like just compress the vocal till it just sits on top of everything all the time. You don't have to move anything. I've always been a fan of compress less and automate more. So automating, like I'll listen through the vocal and I'll mouth the vocal with my eyes closed. And if there's any lyric in there that I feel, or any syllable that I feel like gets lost, there's a T in there that gets lost, or an S, or the end of this word gets lost, I'm going to automate that up. I mean, if you look at my automation on my sessions, my drums, my vocals mainly are just up and down and up and down and up and down and up and down. There's just dots everywhere all over the screen where that vocal's getting automated. And then my master bus is the same way. Not my master bus, my master fader is going to be the same way. What's interesting is when sometimes I mix out to my master fader on the analog console. And so then I'm actually doing it in real time too, so it just depends on it's a lot easier if you keep the master fader in the box to do it, but in the computer. But yeah, man, that's just, why record anything quiet if you don't want it quiet? I don't want it to disappear completely, but you get the idea.
Oh, 100%. When I listen to A Symptom of Being Human in the album listen of Planet Zero, that's taking down in a moment on the album. And I think because of how you thought about dynamics is why that song really took off the way it did. I truly feel the music in that song. Obviously, the message is what resonated with so many people, but the music that sits underneath this message is so calming, but then it builds. And the way the drums come in, Barry's not doing some like progressive rock opus. He's playing to the song, but it's so big because of the way the song has such dynamics. Where in other songs, if it was just a loud overall mix, you'd have to almost play more to try to fight the loudness wars.
Yep. Yeah. And it's not just dynamics with that either. You talk about the last chorus of Symptom of Being Human. Something interesting happens there too with the drums, and musicians are going to get this. I'm not getting too inside baseball, but all of the chord changes at that last chorus, once it builds in, they all take place on the and not on the beat. So it causes the last chorus to hop and kind of move differently. If we had just left, shout out to Barry Kerch, if we had left the kick drums just right on the beat, sometimes I'm in a corner where I boom, clack, boom, and instead it's doom, when I don't do boom, boom, clack, like that. That'll and move right there at the end lifts that song a ton. Like it's unbelievable how much that changed everything when that happened. Yeah, things like that are the flourish on the end of the painting. Like we're painting on air. And if you've ever watched someone paint, I get to watch my buddy Rob Pryor paint. Rob is doing all of the artwork for my graphic novel. He did all the artwork in the album cover. He's a phenomenal artist. Prior, Rob Pryor. Prior to Art is his Instagram. You should check it out. But I get to watch him paint. And there's always some flourish at the end of the painting. You'll think the painting's done and you're sitting there looking at it, and then he'll do like one more thing to it. And that's it. And you realize that one last thing is the thing that's like It's like the sign off, the signature, you know, it's not the signature,
Yeah.
but and it makes the painting, that one little thing is what gives it its flavor that you didn't know it needed. And so there are little things like that, like the last chorus on Symptom, where you just change the kind of cause a little hop, where the bass notes are changed on the ands instead of on the ones, or there's a pickup on the end, I guess is a better way of putting it. The chords aren't changing on that, but that's that little flourish, man, that you didn't know you needed, that makes the song live and makes it breathe, and that along with the dynamics, you know, it just I don't know, man. You know, it's funny you say that we're talking about this, because I think about some of the music that I love, and there's other stuff, man, that has no dynamics in it whatsoever that I just absolutely love. You know, sometimes I love being pummeled, you know.
Oh, of course.
Like,
if I'm listening to a metal album,
yeah,
you know,
dude,
dynamics be damned.
I don't
at
want any
that point.
dynamics in that at all. Yeah, right. Like if I'm listening to System of a Down or something like that, man, I want to be, you know, I want to be annihilated, Slipknot or something, you know.
Yeah,
But
Lamb of God for
yeah,
me, but you know.
for totally same thing, man. Yeah. I don't want dynamics. What are you talking about?
So I have to, if you don't mind, this has been such an amazing conversation, but I have a couple of, I will kick myself if I don't ask, short Shinedown questions for you that are going to come from a fan perspective, my personal Shinedown fandom.
Sure.
And the first one is, I'm a huge fan of cover songs. And no, I'm not talking about Simple Man. The Warner Sound Live Room EP that you guys put out, you covered I Feel the Earth Move from Carole King.
Yeah.
I'd love to know whose idea that was and how that came into the band, because you guys friggin' slayed that cover. I love the gender flip on it. I love everything about it.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man. Glad you noticed that too. Yeah. So the gist of that was we recorded in Henson Studios in Los Angeles. And so it was, they wanted each artist that came in and did that. So there were multiple artists that went in and did the in the live room, and it was a live recording. Like there's no overdubs. Well, on I Feel the Earth Move and on I'll Follow You, I did overdub the bass because I couldn't play the piano and the bass.
Wait, you can't?
But,
come on.
Well,
Okay.
but technically it's all live in the room.
Yes.
So the piano and the guitar and the drums and the vocals were all done live, and no punch-ins either. Like it's like you're just going to do this song. This is what you're going to do. Do these songs. I think there were 4 of your own songs that you wanted to do, and then 1 song that had been recorded in Henson Studios. And so the list was long of stuff that we could do. I mean, the Black Album was done in Henson Studios. Appetite for Destruction was done at Henson Studios. I mean, the list goes on and on. But, you know, I just always want to do something unique. You know, it's like, what are people not going to expect? And Brent and I had thrown around multiple ideas, and he called me and he's like, hey, man, what about Carole King? And I'm like, I had not thought of that. Like that's not even one that came up in conversation at all. And he's like, yeah, you know, I Feel the Earth Move and You Make Me Feel Like a Woman. Like all those songs were done in Henson. And I'm like, oh man, awesome. So I got to work on it, man. I was like, let me throw something together. Let me throw an arrangement together. And so we put You Make Me Feel as the bridge to the song, basically, so to speak. I had to find a way to get down there, but we threw that hook in there at the end of the guitar solo. But I threw together an arrangement, sent it around to the guys. Everybody loved it. And that was the first time we played it together, was in that session. I think,
Wow.
Yeah, we'd all rehearsed it on our own, but we hadn't rehearsed it as a band. We literally, I think we all showed up at Los Angeles the day before that and just went in and did it. The interesting thing about that version, man, is that's the same piano that she recorded that song on.
Oh,
so if you listen to my intro and her intro, it's obviously the same instrument. Like it's that gives me chills to this day. Is like, because when I hear her version of it, it's like, I know that piano, man. That's like, you know, but yeah, man, we just wanted to just do something people didn't expect, I guess. If there's one thing that makes us tick as a band, that's what it is trying to, because a lot of people second guess us a lot, and it's caused us to walk around with a little chip on our shoulder. So just to kind of make the chip bigger, sometimes we want to do things that people don't expect as well. So.
All right. Second question. Attention album. A New Way to Die was a bonus track that you can only get if you purchase the album at Walmart, and you had to download it, and it was only an MP3. So being such a huge fan of this one, I have to ask, and it's a small minor gripe of all the years I've been a Shinedown fan. How did A New Way to Die not make the original Attention album?
Yeah. I don't remember why that's not on the record. And honestly, you just brought up a song that I have not thought about in a lot of years. I hadn't thought about that song in a minute. Wow, man. I remember recording that song for sure. Zach played bass on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on that song. I played guitar on that song. He played bass on that song. We do that a lot. We'll switch. If you write the riff in Shinedown, you generally going to play the song on the record. Like there's no, or a song like Dead Don't Die, the intro is Zach. The intro and verses is Zach because he wrote that. And then it gets to the chorus, and I wrote the chorus riff, so I played the choruses on that song. So there's a lot of like flip-flop switching around, kind of stuff that happens on our records like that. Zach played bass on A New Way to Die. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know why that's not on the record. Here's the thing. Obviously, at the end of the day, we decided, the word committee sounds awful. Everything happens by committee, meaning the 4 band members decide, like, what do we think the record is? And at some point, that was decided that didn't belong on the record for whatever reason. So that's the best answer I have for you. I wish I had something more woo-woo than that, but that's it.
Okay, so then for this third question, I wouldn't be doing my part as a podcaster if I didn't ask if there was any dirt that you'd be willing to share on Shinedown 8 with the My Weekly Mixtape listeners.
Ooh, dirt about it. I'm trying to think of dirt at this point. Man, I don't know why this is the first thing that popped in my head, and I apologize if this is not what you're looking for. The first set of songs that we wrote for the record, it was me, Brent, and Dave Bassett wrote. I was not well. I was not mentally well the whole time. And there's a song called The Killing Fields, which is a song that I love very much. Dance Kids Dance is another one that we wrote. Searchlight is another song that we wrote. But there's one in particular called The Pilot that is... It's one of the sweetest things. I don't know if anyone's ever given me a sweeter gift than this. And I wish I could take credit for the writing of the song, but it wasn't me. There's a song called The Pilot that's going to be on the record that I had a moment, man, where I just like kind of unloaded and vented to Dave and to Brent, because we're all great friends. And it was just one of those things about how, like, man, I'm not in a good place, and I don't know what's happening with my brain, and not sure I want to be here, and all of that stuff, and it helps to talk about those things with people. I encourage everyone to talk about those things. Like even the stuff you don't want to say, like when I say I don't want to be here, like that's a heavy thing to say. But sometimes, man, you have to make your friends your therapist. And sometimes you have to they don't have to have the answers, but it just helps for you to articulate those things to somebody. But I got done articulating these things to him. And the next day we got back to writing, and it wasn't going well. And Brent looked at Dave and he said, "Do you want to play it for him?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And evidently Brent had gone by Dave's hotel room that night after we got finished, and Dave was working on this song, and he played it for Brent. And Brent's like, "Man, you got to play that for Eric." And Dave's like, "I don't know, man." He's like, "That's super personal. Like, I don't know." And I think Dave thought maybe I'd be mad or something. I was like, there was nothing of the sort. And he played me this song called The Pilot that he wrote about me and about what I was going through from my perspective. And dude, it's like, I can't wait for everybody to hear it. It's, again, I wish I could claim songwriting on it. I don't have any songwriting on it whatsoever. I played the acoustic guitar on it and recorded it, but it's a very different place for Brent's voice too, because it's soft. There's no trying to overpower the song at all, ever once in the song. He's singing, he's basically singing in a speaking voice the whole song. And it's, I don't know, just probably the, I don't know, when I think about gifts that people have given me over the years, like that's just one that, and I probably don't tell him, and I probably don't tell Dave enough about it either. But yeah, so there you go. There's some. Sorry, this kind of solemn dirt, but it's dirt, and nonetheless, whether it's dirt or not, there's something that's the first inside scoop on the record anybody's had. How about that?
All right. Well, the one thing I will follow it up with then, Attention, concept album. I Have a Name, concept album.
Yeah.
Planet Zero, concept album. Shinedown 8?
Not a concept album.
All right.
Not a concept album. A back to more of what Threat to Survival was, what Sound of Madness was, which is just a collection of songs, and definitely from a real place. Nothing's changed in that department. It's just that was sort of something agreed upon before we even started writing. It's like let's just and again, it's like I think that everyone's gaze kind of shoots at me when they say concept record, because it's like I've been responsible for those 3 records, and they're all 3 concept records, but all of those were unintentional, other than my record. My record was not an unintentional concept record, but the rest of them were pretty unintentional. They ended up just being what they are. So this time we're like, let's just try to spread the subject matter around a little more this time and see if we can't come up with some interesting things.
But wait, there's more. However, if you like what you're hearing, be sure to visit the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com, where you can check out a full playlist featuring all the songs we've discussed in this episode, as well as some video and photos from the band's 2025 debut at Madison Square Garden. You can find that over on the episode page at myweeklymixtape.com. Now, normally this is the point I would start wrapping things up. However, Eric and I continued talking long after the episode recording was done, and he was kind enough to allow me to run some of this. So I'm going to play some bonus content for you guys right now, here where he's talking about some of his experiences being on the road with Iron Maiden and the first time that he met Wolfgang Van Halen of Mammoth.
Well, dude, like two interesting stories is Nico's like the most awesome dude, and he would have his dressing room was next to our room every day, and he'd listen to he'd just get to listen to him warm up every day. It was like we'd be coming off stage and he'd be warming up, and it's just like awesome. But he'd pop in every day. It's just the most affable, genuine person. Their whole crew is, man. Everybody out there is like that. Same thing happened with Kiss too, man. Kiss was like they were just so. One of the great lessons our band learned from those two tours, not that we didn't already know this, is how to treat other bands, how to treat the opening acts, right? You know, like a lot of bands treat the opening acts like shit. It's like this power move or something. And both of those bands just treated us with so much respect. And there was no fart sniffing or anything like that. You know, these guys were just, and girls were just so amazing. But the other thing is that Bruce, when we finally got into the UK on that tour, that he'd be rolling in late to every single show, because he just took the trains everywhere. He's like, I'm good. Like when we were in London, he was taking the tube. He was taking the underground, then got on a surface train out to O2 Arena or whatever, just traveling like that. Like he's like, hey, I need somebody to come pick me up from the train station. You know, it's not like, and again, it's like, it's a reminder of like, and dude, I think it's just something that's ingrained in us too as a band. It's like, I get paid to be a rock star for 2 hours a night, and then once I get off stage, man, drop the rock star thing. Like you have to do that on stage to a point, to do the thing, to put on the show, to do the moves, to do all this stuff. You have to feel somewhat larger than life to do that. But when that show's over with, man, just go back to just be yourself, you know. And I love that about Bruce Dickinson, man. He's like, yeah, I'm just taking the train around. And another great thing about him too, dude, we his son's band, his son Austin, his band, they opened for us on a tour. And Austin is such a good kid. Like, he's not a kid, he's a man, but I'm old. But and I can say the same thing about Wolfgang Van Halen too, because I met Wolfgang Van Halen when he was young. I met Wolfgang at 17. And my first thought was like, your parents are really good parents. Like, that's the first thing I thought about with Wolfgang, and it's the first thing I thought about with Austin, because I know so many shithead kids who have famous parents, and the parents just allow the kids to do whatever the fuck they want to do, and don't give them any guidance in life. And you can tell with Austin Dickinson that, and again with Wolfgang as well, but with Austin that his parents are awesome, because he's just way too sweet and normal and caring and loves his dad. Like dude, his dad came to the shows to watch his son play, and would just deflect every bit of attention away from himself onto his son, you know. And it's just, you can tell, man, that it is a loving family, and Bruce Dickinson is a loving father, which is a really good thing to know. The interesting thing is, I have not spoken to Wolfgang Van Halen since then. I've never
Really?
I just haven't had it like we've done one festival with him one time, and I wasn't able to say anything or get around. I just, you know, again, we have never been in each other's sphere. It was at a Nickelback show. We were opening for Nickelback in 2008, I think, or 9. And Wolfgang, he was, I was standing up on the front of house, on the riser at front of house behind the soundboard, watching the Nickelback show. And I happened to notice in between one of the songs, this kid was trying to get up on the riser, and he had his girlfriend with him, obviously. And the security guard was like, he's looking at his pass, and the security guard was like, no, I'm sorry. And the kid's like, and so I just went down, and I was like, hey, he can come up here, you know? So the kid gets up on the thing. And by the way, Van Halen was my seminal band when I was a kid. Van Hagar first, because that's just what I fell into. We're going to talk about the 5150 tape that I got.
Yes.
And then I worked backward into the rest of it. So I was in the throes of Van Halen obsession when For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge came out. So, and anyone who's a Van Halen fan understands that record, like Wolfgang being born, had a lot to, you know, Eddie Van Halen talked about his son incessantly, as he should, when was doing press for that record. So all the fans knew about Wolfgang. But, you know, I hadn't seen a picture of the kid since he was super young, you know, whatever. I didn't know. But anyway, this kid comes up on the 17-year-old teenager kid comes up on the drum riser, or no, the drum riser, the riser front of house. And I said, hey man, I said, what was going on? He's like, oh, they were, they said I had the wrong pass. And he's like, I was just going to go back and get another one and blah, blah, blah. And he was so sweet. I was like, oh dude, no, I got you, man. No problem. I said, what's up? My name's Eric. He goes, hi, I'm Wolfgang. And I just instantly it clicked. I'm like, oh, this kid's got backstage passes. Who else is named Wolfgang? And then the kid looked just like Valerie Bertinelli. I was like, oh, dude, like, hey, what's up, man? Nice to meet you. And like, so for me, it was like almost like a fanboy thing in a weird way, because it was like, dude, I've been following you since you were an infant, But the thing that stuck with me about him in that moment was, like, any other kid whose dad's in a famous band, much less Eddie Van Halen's and Valerie Bertinelli's son, would have given the security guard shit. Would have been like, what do you mean? This is my line. Started raising hell, And I was just watching this kid be super respectful. That's why I brought him up. He was like, oh, I could hear him saying, oh, okay. Well, let me go back and see if I can get this. And he told his girlfriend, like, you wait here, who's his now wife, I believe. Like, you wait here and I'll go, and I was like, that's what I'm talking about. You have to have good parents at that point. Like you're like, you were not raised by parents who weren't teaching you respect, and how to respect 100%. People. So anyway, there you go. Those are two inside stories.
I think it's safe to say there's no shortage of amazing things going on in the Shinedown camp. As you're listening to this episode right now, 2026 is going to be a massive year for the band. Shinedown 8 is on the way, and I can't wait to hear what the band has in store for us in the new year. I hope you guys have enjoyed this Sound of Shinedown celebration. If you have, please subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. Drop a 5-star review. Follow me on social media at My Weekly Mixtape. Send me an email, myweeklymixtape@gmail.com. Join the Patreon Mixtaper community at patreon.com/My Weekly Mixtape, or browse the back catalog of My Weekly Mixtape episodes over at myweeklymixtape.com. Once again, my name is Brian Colburn. This has been My Weekly Mixtape, and I appreciate you all tuning in, especially if you've made it this deep into the episode. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and we will see you next week. Actually, we'll see you next year. Happy New Year, everybody.